hello. I want to thank you again for being here with this research certificate. I want to talk to you a little bit about collaborations that will make your life easier in undergraduate research. I love this slide because it has my students out in the field. We're out in the wild place behind the Southeast campus in two different investigations. One is looking at the plants back there and the other one is looking at the fish. So we had a wonderful time. And again, much of this information has come from the Community College Undergraduate Research Initiative partners. I'm Diana Spencer, the TCC Chair of Research. And again, thank you for joining us. What I want to share primarily is how important collaborations are and how much easier they might make your life. They make the learning deeper, they make the learning broader, and it gives you an expert when you might want to have one. So this is a picture of the community college research investigations. It was across the nation. It was a wonderful group of people, and so I've got slides. And it is a science group. It's a National Science Foundation, so my slides are heavy in the sciences, but I'm very aware that people maybe in the humanities and in sign language interpretation, many different fields might be watching these slides, so I've tried to keep that in mind. We think that curricular undergraduate research experiences, so emphasis on the curricular, at community colleges, so within your classroom, are going to help you reduce the barriers of time, space, and culture. Again, the research is teaching pedagogical research. Pedagogical look is very important. Collaborations provide faculty access to many different things: research partners, professional training, facilities that you may not have at your home institution, we may not have at TCC. We've used many different collaboration sources, and again, I'm looking at the CCURI group, but I'm also looking at faculty at TCC. We have had institutional or internal partnerships. Those are often the easiest to form. We've worked with four-year schools, graduate schools, bringing in visiting experts, working with governmental agencies and different businesses. So we've seen all of that in the field. It's also good for the students. There's many opportunities, and it provides many opportunities for these students. They get to work within the community. They either do internships or apprenticeships, volunteer activities. They start to see what their professional community is going to look like, and it helps them to have greater career clarity. Again, I'm going through these slides fairly quickly, so feel free to look at the PDF. Four-year institutions are often formed through personal connections, maybe the school that you graduated from. Federal grants, four-year schools, graduate schools, when they're trying to get monies on federal grants, they often have something called broader impacts. And faculty connections to community colleges provide that for those four-year schools. So they're looking for us. They can be formal or informal. They can provide instrument cores where you can have access to equipment that's too expensive to have at our community college. You can work with multiple classes across multiple grade levels, and this helps the students after they matriculate. So Delaware Technical Community College is an example, just one example of the many schools that have used the universities within their areas, University of Delaware and Delaware State. And what that professor did is she started the research at the community college, but then the analysis needed to take place at the four-year school that had a little bit more defined instruments. Moreno Valley College out of California, they worked with the University of California at Riverside, and they were doing studies on swallows. And if you look at the list, very different experiments on swallows. And they connected with a number of professors at that university that allowed those students to work in their labs and finish some of the data collection that they had begun. Now, we've had a lot of success with governmental agencies and industries. Often you can find these collaborations through personal relationships. I have found some through our advisory board and professional organizations. Sometimes the relationships are formal. We have had a memorandum of understanding where we defined specific things that both institutions wanted defined. You might need to sign an intellectual agreement. Student internships, there's a lot of paperwork involved with that. But many times, these types of connections form a community connection that is otherwise unavailable. And they're very sustainable if you make those relationships. This is one example out of New York State. There was a faculty member there that was well-versed in field studies, and he had read an article that New York State just could not figure out their quantity of bears and how many were hibernating. So he worked with the New York State Environmental Conservation and the Bureau of Land Management. He was able to then work on black bears, something that the state needed him to do, and really fun experiences that I guarantee those students will never forget. I love that picture with that little bear. Another interesting one was out of Cochise College that's right here on the border between Arizona and Mexico. And these students were looking at what organisms were traveling across the border. They worked with the U.S. Department of Interior, the Bureau of Land Management, and got permission to work right there on both sides of the border. Love that picture. And again, the students will never forget what they learned there. Individual partnerships. So I was able to work with two of our wonderful faculty that have expertise that I don't have. Dr. Connie Murray and Professor Patty Smith have worked with my students numerous times out in the field. They help our students identify the plants, and then we take it into the lab and do the molecular techniques on that. We took our students to meet the CEO of the Tulsa Botanic Garden, Dr. Todd Lasang, and he was wonderful meeting with our students. Our students had no idea where the Tulsa Botanic was. Our students had never been to a botanic garden. So again, collaborations make the learning go broader and deeper, and his expertise was just phenomenal for our students. We've used other experts. The Tulsa Zoo has worked with us. We literally were able to work with Komodo dragon poo, the DNA from the poo, many different samples from the zoo. And then Mark Swanson worked with us to work with the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation when we were looking at fish in the two ponds on the southeast campus. If it had been up to me, I would have had a fishing pole. And that Department of Conservation had so much better techniques, of course. And it was fun for all of us, and the students got to see another career that they might not have considered. I worked with this particular individual. He is now Dr. Heath Crosby, and he took some of our classes while he was working on his PhD, and I was able to work with him on a pretty technical research method, real-time RT-PCR. And then he used that within his PhD doctoral studies. And he was able to bring to TCC chronic pain tissue out of rats. That is a tissue that we would never have at TCC. So it was a wonderful, fruitful experience. He got some data and our students got great experience. And for me professionally, he listed me on a paper. So that worked for me professionally. We had a similar experience with Dr. Dusty Sloan as she was working on her doctorate and looking at oxytocin regulation in the brains of some vertebrate animals. Again, tissue that we would not have. Information that I did not know. She came, she presented, and the students were able to work with that. And I got to be a part of a publication. OSU CHS has been wonderful to help us with our students on internships. It takes some paperwork, it takes some phone calling, some information. Dr. Dusty Sloan has led this, but this particular experience has been wonderful for our students to see their futures. TCC Foundation has helped fund this. And then there are other examples. Professor Neil Ennis has worked with folks out of Yale University for the Small World Initiative. Professor Mary Phillips has worked with NASA over and over, getting students to the Jet Propulsion Lab in California. And then Mark Swanson has worked with the Department of Wildlife Conservation and serves as a wonderful conduit between these groups and my classroom and his classroom. I wanted you to see this. Oklahoma Research Day, that's another collaboration that we do with the Oklahoma EPSCoR. They provide for free an opportunity for students to present, undergraduate students to present their posters. And on the bus on the way home, I just handed the students in the back of a bus a pad of paper and said, give me 10 words, give me words that you felt like you experienced today. And the only thing that I added to this whole word fun was the word research. And then every other word on there they came up with encouragement and motivation and connections, and it just makes me happy every time I look at it. So join us. We provide a cushy bus every spring to Oklahoma Research Day, and it is free to you and to your students. Another internal collaboration, I work with about 100 students, so maybe 5 or 6 faculty members where I present a research investigation using bioinformatics. We look at about 7 different software programs to analyze DNA data. And so the students come in, they have never seen the DNA data, and we take them through these 7 programs. And you can see their own self-analysis pre-survey and post-survey that the learning is significant. We work with CCURI folks all across the nation, and remember that TCC provides those lab methods workshops. And if we don't provide those workshops, they are across the nation, and you find faculty members that are like-minded. I've learned so much from so many colleagues across the nation. And then remember, you can get a lot of good stuff out of grants in general. We have received a lot of good out of National Science Foundation and the National Institutes of Health grants. They don't have to be housed at TCC for us to gain opportunities, but just look at the opportunities, the training and the travel and the presentation and the work that has produced these grants really develops faculty and thus develops the students. If you're not aware, the National Council of Undergraduate Research works to provide this conference for undergrads every year. You would want to upload abstracts, you with a student. Deadline's usually early December. The trip is in April. But it is the fastest way for you and your student to see 2,000 presentations within 2 days. It is phenomenal. I know of no one that has attended these that has not come home changed. So I've covered many different things, many different collaborations, but again, I think it's the easiest way for your learning to go broad and deep, and for you to get some expert help. Please call me, please look at the activities that I have listed, and thank you for your time.